Hey guys, long time no see, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about my February reads. It's only the 2nd of March, can we believe the punctuality?
It's the 12th of April.
I've actually been sick. I had that plague, lurgy, whatever it was that was going around for a few weeks there. And this is the first day my voice has sounded somewhat normal. So it's only right that we do a February reading wrap up. Some good books. Sorry. My iPad's down there, it's only on 6%, so if you see me looking down, that's what I am referring to, because obviously it's only been a month and I've immediately forgotten so many of the books I read. Let's start with the first book I read in February, or rather the first book I finished in February, which was Onyx Storm. You guys already know. I wanted to talk about this so badly in my January wrap up, and I should have, because do I remember a single point I wanted to touch on? Not really. But I did give this book 4 stars. I know it is not receiving the praise that Iron Flame Fourth Wing did previously. That is unfortunate because I do think this book was an improvement on where we are in the story compared to the first 2 books. Obviously, Fourth Wing was a 5 out of 5 read. Everyone found that so fun, enjoyable. I think this book helped convey that the stakes are a bit higher. Where this book fell down, and I don't know whether I was just so hyped to finally be reading it after reading Iron Flame, but I was enjoying it. And then talking about it, my boyfriend was reading it at the same time as me, and then my friend Matthew had also started it, and he pointed out, they both had the same points, but Matthew specifically pointed out the dialogue and pacing issues that I do think let this book down. I was oblivious to them in the first half, but at one point I was getting whiplash from where the story was going, from when the story was going and how quickly we were getting through it all. I don't know, it just seemed like, okay, I'm going to put a picture of Iron Flame on the screen here, and for as long as this picture is on the screen, I'm going to be talking about where we are in the story specifically. So spoilers for Iron Flame, but not spoilers for Onyx Storm. Obviously, Iron Flame starts off with Xaden partially turning, no sorry, Iron Flame ends is with Xaden partially turning Venin. So I thought we were going to be exploring that a lot more than we really were. And I understand where the story in Onyx Flame took us, but it seemed like such a mammoth adventure. And I don't know whether Rebecca Yarros's editor was giving her notes to cull down on either the transportation between isles or just we would go to bed in Basgiath and wake up on an isle. It felt like but that being said, I was enjoying the actual characters a lot more in this book, which I think helped me turn a blind eye to it. I am going to talk about spoilers for Onyx Storm, so while Onyx Storm is on the screen, mute the video if you're watching it and you haven't read Onyx Storm, like my friend Hannah might be. If you haven't read Onyx Storm, skip to this timestamp or mute it for the entire time this photo is on the screen. My major issue with the dialogue in this book came from whenever Xaden and his mum are reunited. I don't know, I understand that the conversation was meant to sound stilted because they haven't seen each other in so long, but it didn't sound like humans talking, and I understand why it would sound strange. And if it was just that it sounded erudite, or obviously that Isle respected like knowledge, so if it was just meant to be very matter of fact, I would understand that a lot more. But I didn't think it reflected either of those qualities. I think it just sounded strange. Some of the things in general that Violet came out with sounded strange, which maybe could have added to the dialogue issues, but I just think our girl Violet is a bit strange. And her and Xaden, I can't even judge them because I think they are so OTP coded that you kind of just have to let it be. You kind of just have to let them be cringy and so in love as they are. The end of this book also, we are in spoiler free section, but the end of this book also just completely, I do think, salvaged the 4 star. We got a couple different POVs, not going to say who, but I do think they made the story a lot more interesting and gave you a lot more viewpoint of the situation that we're in at the final bit of the book. How it actually ended, I did predict, and I would feel a lot better with how it ended if I knew we were getting the next book at like the end of the year. I also understand that Rebecca Yarros views it as needing time off. But when your job is to write books, write books. Don't write a book with a cliffhanger like that and then go on a tour being like, and now I'm going to take a big break. And you're probably not going to get the book for a little while. I think my major feeling with the series in general is the fact that it's going to be 5 or 6 books long, and I don't think it needed to be. I think it could have been a very good quality 3 to 4 book series. But I will read the next book, and I will probably need to reread this one to get a wrap up closer to the time. So we'll see if my thoughts change having been through the story once before. Book 2 in February, and the only other physical book I read this month, because the rest were Kindle or audiobook, but it was The Cruel Prince. This was a reread for me because my boyfriend was reading it for the first time, and I really like knowing exactly what's going on that he's reacting to, so we kind of tried to buddy read it and we ended it together because I do think the best chunk of the book, sorry, scared me. I do think the best chunk of the book is like the last 100-ish pages. When the book splits from part 1 and part 2 is when it all kicks off. I really enjoyed it. It's a 5-star book for me. It still is. I think the series as a whole is a 5-star series for me. I love Cardan, I love Jude, I hate Taryn, I understand Madoc-ish, and I also loved the references to The Darkest Part of the Forest, which I read last year, and it was actually published before the Cruel Prince series, so it was kind of nice to actually see an Easter egg that I missed the first 4 times I read this book. If you're unfamiliar with the series, this book is based in Faerie, and it sees 2 mortal twins, Jude and Taryn, brought up there after their parents are murdered by their stepdad, in a way, Madoc, because Madoc is the biological father of their eldest sister, Vivian, or Vivi as she's called in the book. So it shows these 2 mortal girls being brought up there and trying to adapt to living as one of the folk, and then their older sister, who actually is one of the folk, really rejecting those ideals and trying to get back to the human world, and wanting to live as she started her life living. There's an enemies to colleagues to lovers dynamic, and I really enjoy it. I know some people do struggle with the bullying storyline that kind of goes along with that enemies to lovers. I don't mind it, and I hate a bully romance. I just think that whenever all of their motives and intentions come out, you understand a lot more at the start of the book. You understand their attitudes toward each other so much more at the start of the book, and I also think the payoff at the end of the book with how they interact cancels it all out, and I usually don't believe that at all, so I love them. I love Jude and Cardan. I will say, of the series as a whole, Queen of Nothing is my least favourite, but only because we lose one of my favourite characters for such a chunk of the book, and I felt like their presence was really missed. But I think The Wicked King is my favourite, so I'm excited to read that one at some point this year. My book club book of the month was The Crash by Freida McFadden, and it was the first book I read completely on Kindle, and I did finish it in a 24-hour period while I was on holiday in Prague. So the pacing of the book is probably something to be appreciated, but overall I did not enjoy this book. I am such a plot focused reader that I think I really struggle in books with not a lot of plot but beautiful descriptive language, or not a lot of plot and character development. I do like character development, I also do like character development, but it's why some retellings I don't rate very highly, because I know how the book is going to end. There has to be something of real interest to me to enjoy a book where I know how it's going to end. And that's what I really enjoy about thrillers, is I try to guess the ending and I usually don't. This book, the main character was so annoying to me. She obviously finds herself in a situation that she can't get out of, as most female main characters do in thrillers, but I just think she could have got out of it. She wasn't trying. It's so easy for me to sit here and say she wasn't trying hard enough, but she wasn't trying hard enough, and I also am aware you need to give books a bit of nuance when you go into them, because the main character in this book does not know she's the main character in a thriller book. So if, for instance, she finds a cabin in the woods I know that she should not go into that cabin in the woods, but she doesn't because it's her only option. So I was trying to hold a lot of grace for the main character in that way. But she didn't deserve it. She didn't deserve it. And the synopsis of this book is it follows Tegan. It follows Tegan, who is heavily pregnant, very much financially unstable, has no money, has this baby to look after, but the biological father of the baby is going to pay Tegan off to have nothing to do with the child. So she is going to have a financial break. But something happens in regards to Tegan and she no longer signs the contract. She decides she doesn't want to do that. She needs to get away. She goes to try and visit her brother. And she drives in the middle of a snowstorm upstate, I think, to find her brother. So she's driving into a storm to try and find her brother. So immediately I'm like, right, well, don't do that. Don't do that. And she gets stuck in the woods. People find her in the woods. They tell her that they can help her. It's a thriller, so you can imagine this is where our main character finds herself in the main situation for the majority of the book. And I have never been heavily pregnant. I've never had my leg fractured from being in a car accident. So I can imagine it is incredibly difficult to maneuver in those situations. I don't care. I may not have experienced all those symptoms, but I have experienced chronic pain. And if I was in the situation the main character was in and it felt like every cell in my body was crying out in pain, I don't think I would care. I would army crawl if I had to. I don't care if it took me days. I would move out of the room or whatever I was stuck in. Like this woman was in a room. Low key spoilers, but she was kept in a room. The door wasn't locked. She was lying in a bed this whole time. She wasn't restrained. There were stairs leading up to the door, and like I said, she had these injuries, but so move. Your life is in danger. The book ends anyway, and towards the end of the book there's another plot twist that comes in regarding another character we see so little of throughout the book that whenever it came at the end, I don't even think I would classify it as a plot twist. I just think it was kind of, you thought you knew the ending, you don't. Here's what actually happened. And I hate that. I hate that so much. I think a very good thriller gives you so much opportunity to figure out what's going to happen at the end and you still don't because you didn't see something coming. Whereas this, it didn't give you the opportunity to figure out the end because it didn't give you all the information. There's also a storyline regarding the people that are keeping our main character, kind of having everything work out for them again at the end, which is another conversation to have. And if anyone has read the book and wants to, let's, because I'm not sure that should have ended for them the way it did. Overall, I give this book 1.5 to 2 stars. But obviously this author is somewhat beloved and I can understand why her books would get people into reading again if they've stopped reading for a while or if they're just starting reading for the first time, because I didn't want to put this book down. I did want to figure out how it finished, and I think that kind of hookability that it had is one of the reasons it's got at least 1 star from me. But I kind of wanted to see if I had just picked up a dud, so to speak. So I did also read The Housemaid by Freida McFadden. And this book was better. I think the characters were more likeable. And I had a lot more grace for the main character in this story and the situation she found herself in. I actually did feel like that main character was actually stuck in her situation and was really trying to look for a way out of it once she realized what the situation was. I also think there's something to be said about the age that these main characters are, because they're obviously quite young, and so that naivete that I can look at so jadedly, obviously they aren't. So I can kind of give it a bit more forgiveness for that, and for that I did like this book a bit more. But again, the ending just kind of had a twist or a hint to how the rest of the series was going to go, and I'm not sure how I felt about it. Again, if you've read it, we can discuss it. But overall, I did give that book 3 stars. I did think it was a better storyline than The Crash, and after discussing this at book club, I am going to read, I think, one more Freida McFadden book that a lot of the girls said is their favourite, so bear with whenever in March I'm talking about Never Lie by Freida McFadden. Another Kindle book I read this month was Funny Story by Emily Henry. After reading Happy Place as my book club pick in January, I really wanted to see how Funny Story lived up to it because I really liked Happy Place. I think with Emily Henry books, if you really like one, you're not really going to like the next. And if you didn't really like that one, you're going to really like the next. I don't know if she's turning into an auto-buy author for me, because it's not as if every single book that she releases I'm like, yes, that was great. But I did really enjoy Happy Place. And I did rate Funny Story 3.75 stars, so 4 stars from Goodreads. And my review is the last 20% hit though. So I clearly did enjoy that chunk of the book, but I think whenever the payoff in a book comes so late in the book, as in I'm kind of just reading for the sake of reading and then the last 20% was good, that really spoils the book for me. Funny Story is based on our main female main character called Daphne, and her new roommate is called Miles. Daphne's fiance coming home from his stag do and telling Daphne that he realised tonight that he has feelings for his female best friend, and she has feelings for him too, and they are going to be together. And so Daphne is like, what do you mean? And Peter's like, don't worry, me and Petra are going to go away for a week and give you a chance to pack up all your stuff, because Daphne is living in the house that Peter bought, and you know, you can figure out a new living arrangement. And at this time, Petra is having the conversation with her partner Miles, and so Miles is about to lose a roommate, so in moves in Daphne, because she has this job in this city that she moved to be with Peter. She kind of needs to see out a bunch of projects that she started, and then she's planning to get out of there. Obviously then, romance ensues, funny stories ensue, and we see Daphne really start to make a life for herself in this city that she just moved to, because of the state that she just moved to, because of her partner, and that kind of independence and sense of self that she discovers along the way is really endearing. We also see some of her family ties and how her relationship with her parents is kind of reflected in who she is as a person. I did find a lot of that aspect relatable, but I just wish that we'd gotten either more point of view scenes from Miles, because he just does some things that I'm like, oh, stupid boy, why'd you do that, stupid boy, why'd you do that? It would have been nice to see them play out in his perspective, because he does justify them at the end, but it would have been nice to kind of be rooting for him a bit more in that time. I did enjoy it, and Emily Henry's coming out with another book this year that I probably will be reading, because I'm due an up from her. And we have my first audiobook this month. I read Mickey 7 and I loved it. I'm so excited for Mickey 17 coming out in the cinema. I love Robert Pattinson, I love Bong Joon-ho, I love the premise of the whole movie. I'm so excited to see it. And the book was, I thought, really, really good. It is I was trying to think of it sci-fi, because I keep calling dystopian books like fantasy or sci-fi when they're really dystopian, but this is sci-fi, it's not set on Earth. But it's a really quick read. Sci-fi isn't a genre I usually reach for, but I'm so glad I read this one. It's funny, it's interesting, it's a quick read, it's only 296 pages, so you can fly through it. The characters are good. I have seen the trailer for Mickey 17, so I was picturing Robert Pattinson the whole time, and a lot of the cast that are in the movie I just immediately saw as their characters. I'm so excited to see the movie. It is based on the premise of having an expendable, so these people are obviously off trying to cultivate other planets, other worlds to live on, so the human race can kind of survive and live on, and each mission needs an expendable, which is kind of someone that will sign up to go into all these very dangerous situations to expand on the information that the team has for how humans will react to certain situations. And the expendable has all of their body, DNA, and memories backed up onto the server, so if they perish, they use this carbon organic material to print another expendable. And then so you have Mickey 1, Mickey 2, Mickey 3 to Mickey 7 in this book before the issue strikes where they have printed another expendable and the last one hasn't perished. So you have Mickey 7 and Mickey 8 existing at the same time. Why that's really bad, especially on a ship with limited resources, and it's just trying to keep the people that it has alive, let alone an extra body that they think they can just kill off, because obviously both expendables have the memories of their past selves, and so feel as human as each other. It's quite an interesting moral talk about what makes a person actually a person, but in a very interesting and action-packed way. I am so excited to see the movie, and the book I rated 4 stars. Then I read a book that has been on my TBR for a very long time. I read This Is How You Lose, The Time War. It was on my TBR before that big viral tweet came out talking about it, but then the big viral tweet made me want to read it even more. I must have just been feeling in my sci-fi, futuristic, evolution of humanity era because I picked it up. And I was confused. I was confused for so much of it. I do think it ended amazingly. Breathtaking. The way everything was tied together was amazing. But first 20% I was confused. Middle 40% I was persevering. And then the last 40% I loved. Again, a really short book. Only 200 pages. 210 pages maybe. But it follows 2 agents that work for opposite organizations. One's called the Agency and one is called the Garden, and both are trying to manipulate time, past historical events, future historical events, in a type of butterfly effect way, so that humanity and the future of the earth veers towards each of their aims. The Agency wants a very technology focused society for earth in the future, and the Garden is trying to reach a more natural green version of the future, and obviously both agents are trying to make that happen. And because their organizations have such different ideals, they kind of view each other as their number one rival. And then they start leaving each other little notes because they're both converging on the same points of history to try and make an impact. And whichever one gets there first and whichever one's plan succeeds, leave a note for the other one. You follow their story through these notes, and once you kind of get your head around it and discover the identity of the Seeker, which is a third person that we see at all these points in history that is following the 2 agents, a lot of it does make more sense. I do think I would recommend it, but to people that might be used to reading sci-fi, or they're okay with a bit of delayed gratification whenever it comes to the end of the book. But I did really enjoy it, and I did give it 4 stars. And for me, and I know I said earlier in this video that I don't like it whenever the end of the book has to justify the whole start of the book, but I think because this book was only 200-ish pages and the end was so good, I actually did like it in this situation. So I would recommend that one. I'm glad I finally read it. The last book I read in March was Glass Sword by Victoria Aveyard. I gave it 3.75 stars. Its average rating is 3.72, so I enjoyed it about the same amount as everyone else did. It's the second book in the Red Queen trilogy. Red Queen obviously ends with quite a big plot twist set up for the second book, so I was really looking forward to going into this book and seeing how we went on with the story. And it didn't hit as hard as Red Queen, but it hit enough to make me pick up the third book, which is what I'm currently reading. It's King's Cage. I will say Victoria Aveyard writes characters in a very realistic way. I feel like I know a lot of the characters in this book, and she introduces a lot of them in book 2. Book 2 really leads on to the whole revolution that we were almost kind of starting in book 1, the way most dystopian novels do, but I actually found myself really caring for and rooting the characters that we met along the way. It's so easy for a lot of these characters to blend into the background. I know I definitely felt that way whenever I was reading the Hunger Games series. The more characters we kind of picked up, I was struggling to keep track of unless they spent more than a chapter with Katniss, but then they would end up having a bigger part later on in the series, whereas these characters you really feel like you get to know from the jump. And as our main characters, Mare, Shade, Farley and Cal are all meeting these characters, you feel like you are as well. I'm really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying the whole series, and I'm excited to finish King's Cage and then the last book. I think it's a 4-book series, but really excited to finish them and give my final thoughts on the series as a whole. And those are all the books I read this month. Definitely read a few more than I did in January, but I also went to the cinema a lot less than I did in January, so that filled up a bit less of my time that I was able to read more of my books. So many Kindle books and not a lot of physical ones, and I am wanting to read more of what's on the shelves behind me so I can finally sort them out and organize them a bit better. So hopefully going into March I will pick up a few more physical books. I'm not going to be at book club in March because I'm going to America. I'm going to LA, so I'm definitely going to read a few more books while I'm over there. And I think that is everything that I needed to wrap up on. I might do another wrap up based on the movies I've watched this year because I've tried to fit a lot in anticipation for the Oscars tonight. Hello, do you want to come up? Hello. Milo was asleep that whole time, but now she's awake. Oh, did the Alexa timer wake you up? I think she's used to that Alexa not always waking me up, and then we go for a walk. Oh, is that what you were thinking? Yeah. I cannot wait to read a new Hunger Games book. I don't believe we're going to have a new Hunger Games movie in a year's time. What a time to be alive. Thanks so much for watching, and if you're interested in any of my other videos, please feel free to stick around and watch them too. Thanks so much guys. Have a lovely March. So, oh, that helps. Okay, move this over back a bit. Finally let myself sit on a stool because boy did my knees hurt the last time I tried to film this. Oh my god. Yeah. If it's actually straight. Makes it worse. This must be it straight. Hey guys, today I'm going to talk about blah 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 blah. Let me see how that looks.